Hard to believe, final bracketology of the week. Bracketologist of the week. We've been doing this for about a year. And Selection Sunday is coming up in less than a week. He goes by JBR Bracketology. With us right now, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Obviously, there's a lot of bubble discussion here in San Diego. I should have mentioned I probably, JBR, want to get in a question on UC San Diego as well, considering the year they're having in the Big West, but primarily on San Diego State and the Mountain West. So let's start there. We appreciate you hopping on. I think you had something on social media last week where you said, listen, if San Diego State beats Nevada on their senior night, they're in really good shape. So the Aztecs have beaten Nevada. Now they got this Mountain West quarterfinal game against Boise State, important game arguably for both teams. But how do you feel about the Aztecs heading into the Mountain West tournament as it relates to the at-large conversation? And thanks again for joining us in San Diego.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to hop on. No, I mean, I think San Diego State is in good shape for sure, just like I said. Their metrics aren't great. Their resume average is kind of in the low 40s, and then their predictive metrics and net is kind of pushing towards 50. But, one thing the committee loves to overemphasize every single year is the non-conference strength of schedule. And San Diego State knocked it out of the park with that. I mean, their non-conference strength of schedule, as of today, is number 7 overall in the country. And not only did they play a hard schedule, but, they converted opportunities with, the elite win over Houston on a neutral court. They beat Creighton on a neutral court. And then, who expected UC San Diego to be as quality of a win as it turned out to be. So, I think their metric profile with a resume average rate at about 42, as well as some of those really good non-conference wins, I feel like San Diego State is in pretty good shape for a bid. Now, I'm not sure that they're going to get quite as good of a seed as they've gotten some of the past couple of years, just because of, some of those more predictive metrics that the committee tends to lean on a little bit more when it comes to actually seeding the bracket as opposed to selection. So that would be, one concern I would have. But, I think most likely you're going to see San Diego State on the 10 or 11 line, depending on what happens over the next few days.
What about bid stealers? Like how concerned should San Diego State be about potential bid stealers here?
Yeah, I mean, bid stealers, it's always possible, right? I mean, last year we saw what I believe to be as a record 5 bid stealers. And, there was quite a few Mountain West teams that ended up quite close to the cut line as a result. I'm certainly not expecting 5 again. I think on average we see about 1.5 to 2 each season. I think that's kind of what I'm expecting we see again. Right now, if you look at my seed list that's pinned to my profile, I have, I'm basically baking in 0. I'm not expecting any in my current seed list, or I'm not predicting any in my current seed list. So any bid stealer we get, you're right, that moves the cut line up one spot and takes away an at-large opportunity. But, I'm thinking we get 1 or 2. I think Memphis in the American is probably the most vulnerable off the top of my head. I think the way Colorado State is playing in the Mountain West and just the draw they have on the bottom side of the Mountain West bracket, I think it is definitely possible. These power conferences, it's hard to say. I mean, they have so many teams now. It's definitely possible that someone from the bottom works their way in. I mean, certainly nobody saw NC State going on the run that they did last year. So, but it's hard to predict, but, it's certainly possible that one of these teams just catches lightning in a bottle and surprises everyone and goes on to win, 4 games in 4 days or even 5 games in 5 days.
JBR Bracketology on X with us right now, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Of course, I'm the one sitting there last night watching San Francisco Gonzaga, praying that Gonzaga wins that game. It was a very good game. Here's my question. I'm glad you brought it up. Colorado State is playing great basketball. By and large, Boise State's played really well over the last month. And I know they don't say it comes down to league specifically, the selection committee, but could the Mountain West be penalized? This has been my fear with San Diego State. Let's say Colorado State wins the league or the tournament, or even Boise State wins the tournament. Does a Mountain West team get penalized, in your opinion, as a result?
I don't think so, but I guess it's possible. But I don't think so. I don't really see that being an issue this year just with the status of the bubble. I will say going into last year, I posted multiple times heading into Selection Sunday or heading into, kind of this conference tournament week. I was like, I just had a really hard time seeing the committee actually put 6 Mountain West teams into the tournament unless they had to, right? If all the teams finished strong and had the resume where the committee had no choice but to put 6 in, then of course they would. But, I was pretty steadfast that I felt like New Mexico was going to be a bid stealer, even though, you saw everyone, especially some of the big media guys on TV. I mean, I remember John Rossi and Seth Davis both saying New Mexico's a lock after winning Friday night. And I'm like, I don't think that they're a lock. Like, I really don't. I mean, this is a tight bubble. And, we had already seen a number of bid stealers starting to emerge at that point. I'm like, I don't know about that. And then obviously New Mexico took care of business on their own to leave no doubt there. But I don't think that that's going to be an issue for the Mountain West this year. I mean, I've already locked New Mexico. New Mexico's in for sure. And I think Utah State and San Diego State are both pretty safe. That said, it wouldn't hurt to beat Boise State and make it official in that regard.
No doubt about it. What about a Boise State or a Colorado State from an at-large perspective? Do either have an at-large path, in your opinion, to the NCAA tournament?
I think they both have a chance, but I think Boise State has a better shot just because of what they did in the non-conference with their wins over Clemson and St. Mary's, where Colorado State just doesn't really have that, even though, you could certainly argue, obviously finishing second, that they did better in Mountain West play. But, I also think just their path, right? I mean, Boise State could theoretically beat both San Diego State and New Mexico en route to the Mountain West Conference tournament final, whereas Boise State just doesn't have quite as much to gain, in my opinion, with beating a Utah State team that, I don't think has been playing as well the last month as they were back in December and January.
JBR Bracketology with us right now, John and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. I have to ask you about UC San Diego. It's been an incredible year. First year of Division I eligibility. They've put together a resume out of the Big West. So in your opinion, do they have an at-large path if they don't win the Big West tournament coming up this weekend?
They have a path. I'm not super optimistic that they can get there if they don't win the Big West Conference tournament, if I'm being honest, because, I mean, any loss they take would be, at best a quad 2 loss to UC Irvine. And, they don't have any opportunity to pick up any quality wins outside of beating UC Irvine. But the only way that there would be an at-large, obviously, would be losing to them. So
right.
I don't know. I don't feel great about their at-large profile. I know they beat Utah State. But, their resume metrics are upper 40s, which is, kind of right around the cut line of where you see teams in or out. But yeah, it's just going to depend on the rest of the bubble. What does Ohio State do? What does Xavier do? What does Oklahoma do? What does Arkansas do? What does North Carolina do? Those are a lot of, high majors that have, huge opportunities this week to solidify a bid. If all of them fall flat on their face, then, that does present an opportunity for a UC San Diego to get an at-large bid, a VCU to get an at-large bid, a Dayton to get an at-large bid, one of those teams. I mean, I've even seen a couple bracketologists with UC Irvine as one of their last 4 in, for the same type of reasons. I have UC Irvine, my first 4 out. I think it would be tough for the Anteaters to get there, but it's really going to come down to those power conference schools that have those big win opportunities and whether or not they convert or whether or not they don't.
All right. So to put a bow on it from a San Diego State perspective, if they lose on Thursday, what's most likely? And if they win on Thursday from a seeding perspective, what's still in play, I guess, for the Aztecs in Las Vegas from a seeding perspective in the NCAA tournament?
I mean, I think based off their predictive metrics, I think a win versus Boise State, and I would expect San Diego State to be a 10 seed, maybe a 9. A lot was made about the seeding for Mountain West schools last year, but
Yep.
That did not apply to San Diego State. San Diego State did not seem to get that same level of scrutiny as the rest of the schools in the conference. And, it's at least my opinion that a large part of that is because of that national championship run the previous season. does that still apply to 2025? I don't know, but it certainly could. I mean, you have 7 NCAA tournament wins over the last 2 seasons. That's certainly well more than the rest of the conference combined. So I could see, just looking at my seed list, them sneaking into the back of the 9 line. But I would say most likely a win over Boise State, and I would expect San Diego State to end up as a 10 seed on Selection Sunday. If you lose to Boise, then I would say probably an 11, and potentially even in Dayton as a last 4 in. I mean, it really just depends on how the rest of the bubble falls, as well as the number of bid sealers.
All right, you can follow it at JBR Bracketology on X, and we appreciate you taking time for us in San Diego. We know it's the busiest week of the year, so thank you for doing it, and we'll do it again hopefully at some point next year.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
All right, great stuff. Told you. Goes by 3 letters, Jim. You go by 3 letters, truthfully, Jim.
I do.
Yeah, it's Jim. It's 3 letters.
Mine's a name, though.
Mine is John.
You also have 3 letters in your name as well.
Well, he has to protect his identity. When you know bracketology like that, you don't want to just be seen on the street, and then everyone hounds you. And there's
is that the famous bracketologist? Let's go get him.
You don't want to just be mobbed by men, women, everyone, animals.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure a lot of pets.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's pretty high on San Diego State, believing that even if they lose on Thursday, they could even avoid Dayton. And if they did lose on Thursday, maybe a worst case would be Dayton. Not everyone feels that way.
I like hearing those things, but you just also never know until Selection Sunday, until you actually see. And you got to go through all the conference tournaments and the bid stealers and whatnot to actually, get there. And until we hear San Diego State be announced on the selection show, then I think there will be nerves unless they win the Mountain West Conference tournament, and then everything's fine.
There'll be no nerves for me if they win a game in the Mountain West tournament.
Oh, wow.
There'll be no nerves for me if they win a game. If they don't win a game, they'll absolutely.
That's a lie. Nervous. You're always nervous.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point.